Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Wielded Elemental Powers in a Quirkless World Part 2. Before we start, please go support Luis on 2234V for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. Any day. We can see how the green-haired boy was heading towards his classroom. On the way, some girls were flirting with him as normal. He simply responded with a thank you and a smile that made the girls blush more, until he arrived at his classroom and found all his classmates already sitting. Izuku, I arrived on time, he said calmly. He just got to his desk and sat down waiting for the class to pass. After that, the teacher arrived, the class passed, and it was time for lunch. Izuku's classmates and some girls asked him to sit with them, but he cordially refused and went to Yui's place. Yui, hi honey. How did it go? She said calmly. Izuku, I did very well, and you too? He said this but saw that Reiko and Kendo were there. Hi girls, he said this with a big smile. Kendo, hello Izuku, she said happily. Reiko, hello, she said in a calm tone. Yui, and what are you doing today? She said while eating her katsudon. Izuku, as I understand it, we will have swimming lessons today, he said smiling. Kendo, seriously, us too, she said with a smile. Reiko, but remember that they will be different schedules, she said calmly. Izuku, you're right, he said the same. I think I won't be able to see Yui in a swimsuit, he said with a calm tone, making Yui blush. Yui, pervert, he said laughing. Izuku, what is perverted? He said confused. Yui, I don't have to tell you, but every time you see a pervert, hit him, she said this so that Izuku would nod. They are bad people, she said this so that Izuku would nod repeatedly. The bell rings. Izuku, well, I have to go. I'll see you at the exit, Yui, he said to go to his classroom. Yui, yes Izuku, she said calmly and also left. Kendo, you love him, right? She said calmly. Yui, you have no idea, she said with a silly smile. Reiko, then you should take care of her, she said pointing at Setsuna who was talking to Izuku. Yui, that hit, she said clenching her fist. Something is happening to me, she said rubbing her hands. Yes, something, she said laughing. Kendo, okay, we better go back to the classroom, she said nervously. With Izuku. We can see how he was sitting quietly in his seat. Izuku, I'm sleepy, he thought. I think sleeping won't do much harm, he said to lay his head on the desk, putting his book in front so that no one would notice. After that he fell asleep and the time passed. Setsuna, hey Izuku, what if we go out today? She said with a smile, but sees how Izuku doesn't answer her. Izuku, she said confused. Kami, I think he fell asleep, she said laughing a little. Nijire, but look, he looks very cute, she said while caressing the green-haired boy's hair. Momo, you're right, she said doing the same with a slight blush. Psycho, ha yeah. He's just another commoner, she said while stroking his hair. Kami, well, your hand doesn't say the same thing, she said pointing at how Psycho caressed Izuku. Psycho, it's so cute, she said blushing. Setsuna, hey, we could take advantage of this, right? She said with a malicious smile. Setsuna then lifted the green-haired boy up and gave him a deep kiss on the lips. Momo, Setsuna, don't you think you went a little too far? She said blushing. Setsuna, no, it's more like mint, she said, tasting her lips. Izuku, ma, he said this in his dreams for everyone to see. Setsuna, are you talking in your sleep? She said confused. Izuku, don't go, don't leave me alone, he said, making the girls feel bad. Psycho, she said that this Yui was her only relative in Japan, right? She said sadly. Kami, poor thing. Maybe I'll give him a present to comfort him, she said with a mischievous look. Setsuna, I'm in, she said the same. Momo, don't say obscenities, she said with a blush. Setsuna, oh come on Momo, don't tell me that. Izuku, oh damn, he said falling from his desk. What happened to me? He said yawning. Girls? He said confused. But no one could continue talking as Aizawa entered. Aizawa, come on brats. Your swimming class is about to start, the schedule's changed and now you will share with the first A and B classes. He said this so that everyone agreed. Well, let's go, he said seriously. All, yes, they said to go after their teacher. Where is Midoriya? We can see how all the students from 1A and 1B were arriving to where their swimming class would take place. Kendo, how strange, I thought it would only be us, she said confused. Aizawa, well, the schedule changed, so now all 3 courses will have swimming together, he said, confusing everyone since there were only 2. Reiko 3? She asked, confused. Yes, 3, he said, entering with his students. At that moment all the girls blushed heavily when they saw the marked body of our protagonist. Yui only saw the jealous gaze of everyone on the green-haired boy, but oh, he didn't care less and just went with Yui and took her hand, making almost everyone jealous. Aizawa, well, get up, we have to go see some things, he said as he left with the teachers. At that moment Izuku begins to move his hand up and down while holding Yui's. Yui, what's wrong, Izuku? She said with a blush at seeing her boyfriend's marked body. Izuku, I don't know, I just wanted to hold your hand, he said in a childish tone. Does it bother you? He said sadly. Yui, no, not at all, I love that you hold my hand, it's just that you caught me off guard, she said with a light smile. Are they dating? They said in shock. Bakugo at that moment became furious, he exploded with anger. But before an animal, he was a man, and like every gentleman he should never bother another man's girlfriend. He just remained silent, waiting for the class to continue. Kinoko, oh, that's why I always watched them go together, she said with a smile. But no one could continue. As they felt how it began to shake, they got scared and began to run. Yui took Izuku by the hand and they also began to run until everyone stood still, seeing how the wall collapsed. It revealed a man with a green vest with violet feathers. Where is Midoriya? He said, leaving Izuku in shock and scaring Yui. The enemy has arrived. Where is Midoriya? He said, annoyed. At that moment both Yui and Izuku were scared. Izuku quickly ran away, but when he saw that Yui remained static, he came back, grabbed her by the legs and took her with him. He just ran, avoiding the disaster, but he saw them. Green hair, I found you, he said, somewhat annoyed. At that moment the mysterious shoulder fired a shot that hit right next to the green-haired boy. He stopped dead and the shot was enough to get Yui out of shock. Yui, what's going on? She said, scared. Hello, Izuku Midoriya, he said with a superior tone. Izuku, Yui, run away, go to the house, lock yourself in, don't let him catch you. I'll stop him, he said while Yui trembled with fear. Yui, don't do it, come with me, Izuku, she said, scared. Izuku, this is what I was chosen for, to beat him. Don't worry, I'll get you ready for dinner. For now go, he said while Yui nodded and ran away. Yui, take care, darling, she said, running while Izuku agreed. The moment Yui left, Izuku quickly turned to look at the mysterious subject without realizing that another person had stayed. Izuku, who are you? I shouted, upset and scared. Midoriya, the 12th bearer of the great elemental stone. You must be a very good person not to make yourself respected with those powers, but too bad you won't have them anymore. And about my name, since I'll kill you, I'll tell you my name is Kai Chisaki. I'm the one who will carry the great elemental gem, he said with a sly smile. Setsuna, elemental gem? She said, confused as she hid behind the bleachers of the swimming hall. Chisaki, so just give me the stone, Midoriya, and no one will get hurt. Well, you will have to die, but don't worry, you will surely be reincarnated into something beautiful in the world, he said seriously. Izuku, I won't let you take her, he said, getting into a fighting stance, although somewhat nervous. At that moment, without giving an answer, Kai fired a bullet at Izuku. Setsuna watched in shock as the bullet was going to hit him, but she froze as she watched the bullet go through him while he was covered in water. Chisaki, what? He said, confused. At that moment the atmosphere began to feel hot. It was Izuku who had activated his fire and water, leaving Setsuna in shock. Setsuna, how does he do that? She said to herself in shock. Chisaki, oh, so you can control her, you're just making my job harder, kid, he said, irritated. Izuku didn't answer, he just put on a nervous smile. Izuku, do you want the gem? He said, running his finger across his chest, removing his makeup, revealing a red gem. Come and get it, he said, ready for battle. Tell me the truth. Chisaki stared at the green-haired boy without expecting it. He fired a bullet that melted the green-haired boy. He launched himself at Chisaki and tried to hit him with a wind blast that he avoided with a somewhat strange type of weapon. When he tried to avoid it, he fired a shot with this weapon, which paralyzed the green-haired boy. Chisaki, they always fall for this, he said seriously. Izuku, what did you do? He said scared. Chisaki, nothing brat, now I'll take that gem from you if you don't mind, he said as he walked towards the green-haired boy. At that moment Chisaki approached Izuku, who was trembling with fear. He was only 16 years old and still didn't know very well the origin or how to better control his powers. Instead, the one in front of him was someone trained, taught, and born to take that gem from him. He began to get nervous when he saw how Chisaki put his hand on the gem. Chisaki, sorry kid, but that's how things are, he said as he started pulling the gem. At that moment the green-haired boy began to scream, which scared Setsuna when she saw how the gem was slowly separating from his body. She was scared and saw a fire extinguisher and did the only thing she could think of. Chisaki, I'm sorry Midoriya, but it's nothing personal, he said this about to pull out the gem. Izuku, Yuya, I'm sorry, he said a little. But Izuku noticed with amazement how Chisaki fell to the ground from a blow to the head from Setsuna with a fire extinguisher. Setsuna, oh my god Izuku, are you okay? She said worried. Izuku, Setsuna, he said this to faint. Setsuna, shit, she said this to pick up the green-haired boy and get him out of there. At that moment, Setsuna carried the green-haired boy as best she could for blocks until she reached her house. He knew where she lived since he had told her before Yui became his girlfriend. She quickly arrived where she knocked on the door desperately. Yui quickly went down thinking it was Izuku but was scared to see Setsuna desperate with Izuku in her arms. Yui, leave it on the couch, quickly she said this for Setsuna to nod. After that Yui lifted the green-haired boy's shirt, seeing how the place where the gem was shining an incandescent red. In another place, we can see how Chisaki was heading towards a place. Chisaki, what the hell happened to me? He said, annoyed. I just remember that I was about to take the gem from that brat, and then I fell to the ground. He said, hitting the wall. He quickly arrived at a place where he saw a man, who quickly bowed to him. I see you didn't get it, he said angrily. Chisaki, yes sir, I promise you that next time I will get that gem no matter what, he said nervously. I want actions, not promises, he said irritated. You can go, he said waving his hand. Chisaki, yes sir Hisashi, I promise, he said to leave. Hisashi, I'm sorry son, but that gem had to be mine from the first moment, he said laughing. Returning to Izuku. This one is seen on the couch while breathing heavily. Yui, did you see it? She said seriously. Setsuna, what did I do? He said the same. Yui, the gem that is in his chest, she said this so that Setsuna agreed it is a relic passed down from generation to generation among the Midoriya. That gem every so often chooses a bearer to have its powers. The bearers are destined to die defeating the Yakuza, which is the subject you saw. They want the power of the gem. But it was never known for what. She said this seriously. At that moment Setsuna remained silent. First she assimilated everything that had just been told to her. Izuku was a superhuman, she said to herself, trying to make sense of it, but she couldn't. Superheroes were only supposed to be in comics. How is it possible that someone has powers? She said to herself in shock. While she was thinking, Yui finished bandaging Izuku's gem. He had told Yui what she needed to know if something like this happened one day. Yui was grateful to know, if not, what condition her boyfriend could be in right now. Yui, I'm done, she said seriously. Setsuna, what will happen to him? She said worried. Yui, she has to rest a little, then she will wake up, but now, I want you to tell me the truth, she said, confusing Setsuna. Why do you want to take Izuku away from me? She said seriously. Setsuna, well, it's because. Make me strong. Yui and Setsuna stared at each other. Setsuna was nervous and had no way to answer that question. Why was she approaching Izuku? Simple morbid curiosity. Simple need to have a handsome boy for her. Setsuna, I don't know, maybe just a whim? She said, shrugging her shoulders. Yui, are you telling me that you want to ruin a friendship and relationship of more than 9 years just for a whim? She said angrily. Setsuna, Other than that, she said, sighing. Izuku was the first person who rejected me on a date, she said, laughing. At first I thought it was because he was with his girlfriend, so I asked her when I was alone, and she still rejected me. And what I saw, he was the first guy who doesn't see me for my body, and he's my friend just for that. Izuku's my friend for what I am, because despite what I've done and tried, he's still with me and even supports me. If I'm honest, I think that one turned into love, so don't think I'll leave you that easy, she said, laughing. Yui, you won't make it, she said. The same. And what will we do? He will obviously choose me. And what will you do when that happens? She said calmly. Setsuna, I don't know, maybe I'll buy some cats and stay in an old house knitting a scarf, she said, shrugging her shoulders. Although I have an idea, she said with a smile. What if we share it? She said with a big smile. Yui, no, she said seriously. Setsuna, why? She said, crying comical tears. Yui, those types of relationships never work, you know. It's not like in the Fatpad stories, where two girls share the same guy and they're happy. Those relationships are frowned upon by society, and at a certain point relationships like that are full of secrets and problems. Like, for example, who will be her official partner? If she chooses one, the other will remain as a simple lover, you know? That's why they don't work, she said seriously. Setsuna, but we could try to make it work, she said with a smile. Yui, I'll think about it, she said seriously. Setsuna, I'll settle for that, she said with a smile. They continued talking for a while and realized that they were not so different. They could even become friends. They talked until they saw how the atmosphere began to heat up. Yui, heat? She said, confused. Setsuna, what's wrong with Izuku? She said, worried. Seeing Izuku, he was bright red, as if he was about to explode or something, but they saw how that red color slowly began to calm down and the heat went down. Izuku slowly opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was Yui and Setsuna next to him. Izuku, okay, first of all, I'm not the Izuku of your dimension, and because I know that, you two don't get along in my dimension, and Yui wouldn't let Setsuna into this house, he said, making the two girls sweat. Yui, Izuku, this is not the time for jokes, she said seriously, but abruptly she threw herself at the green-haired boy to give him a kiss. I'm glad you're okay, never do that again, she said seriously. Izuku, that guy, he said, attracting the attention of the two, was much stronger than me. With just one weapon he was able to paralyze me and almost kill me. But I already know what I'll do to defeat him, he said with a smile. Setsuna, and what will you do? She said, confused. Izuku, get stronger, he said with a smile. Training. Now we can see the green-haired boy, Yui and Setsuna in a remote forest where no one can see them. Yui, what is she doing here? She said, somewhat annoyed. Izuku, he knows the secret, so now he's part of the team, he said with a smile. Yui, we have a team? She said, confused. Izuku, yes, we call ourselves the cool team, he said, making a drop of sweat come out of the two girls. Setsuna, so what are we going to do? She said, confused. Izuku, you guys do what you want to do, I'll train you, he said with a smile. The two girls just sat and watched as Izuku sat on the ground in a lotus pose. Setsuna, weren't you going to train? She said, confused. Izuku, first, mental training is necessary, so that I can control the elements, and they do not control me, this calm man said without even opening his eyes. After about 20 minutes we can see how Yui and Setsuna were talking and Izuku was still in the same pose. Izuku, well, it's about time, he said, standing up while taking off his shirt for the visual delight of the two girls. Yui, how handsome, she said with a blush at her boyfriend's body. Setsuna, you already thought about my proposal, she said while having hearts in her eyes. Yui, not yet, she said while Setsuna pouted. Izuku, well, let's begin, he said this to start releasing fire from his right side. It began to emanate a large amount of fire. Good thing they were in a part of the forest that had no trees. This one started with his fire and then activated his water, and so he began to control both sides simultaneously. Setsuna saw this surprised. She still did not get used to the green-haired man's power, but they began to feel how it trembled and the earth began to rise slightly until it headed towards the green-haired man, spinning in him just as the wind began to lift him. Izuku, super elements, he said, maintaining the transformation with difficulty. He placed himself in a lotus pose while levitating, The girls saw this surprised by the concentration that the green-haired boy must have right now. 15 minutes passed until they saw how the green-haired boy fell to the ground exhausted. Yui, Izuku, are you okay? She said worriedly. Setsuna, don't you think you went too far? She said the same. Izuku, no, I'm fine, he said, getting up from the ground. 15 minutes. 15 minutes I can maintain that transformation. It doesn't matter. I'll become even stronger. To protect you and you too, he thought with a smile that made the two girls blush. All the way to the coast. A day like any other. After the incident at school, events occurred that led to the case being dropped, such as an explosion in the chemistry lab that led to the wall exploding after that. 4 days passed while the wall and the swimming center were being remodeled and the students returned to their normal classes. Now we can see two boys walking hand in hand for this. Yui, so how long can you keep it? She said, confused. Izuku, approximately 22 minutes, he said with an innocent smile that made Yui blush. Yui, keep smiling, fool, every smile will give you 1 more hour in my bed, she thought with a blush and a silly smile looking at the green-haired boy. Izuku, so, what are we doing today? He said, confused. Yui, I want you to give me a piggyback ride home after school, she said with puppy eyes. Izuku, it's okay, he said with a big smile while caressing Yui's hair. At that moment, Yui felt the touch of the green-haired boy and felt like she was melting, so she just remained silent and enjoyed that majestic sensation. After that, the two boys arrived at the academy until the hallway where they separated. Yui, well, Izuku, kiss, she said, this to see how the green-haired boy gave her a kiss on the lips. Izuku, see you later, Yui, don't change me, he said with a big smile before running away. Yui, why does he always say that? She said, confused. It's obvious that I'm never going to do it, she thought, blushing, imagining the green-haired boy and her with a family. After that, we can see how Izuku arrived at his classroom, where upon entering he greeted all the girls. They also received the cinnamon roll from Class 1S. That nickname had spread throughout the school, since the green-haired boy was practically the dream boy. He was handsome, with muscles, tender, innocent, he was the complete package. He came in and sat in his place, which is between Setsuna and Saiko. Saiko, hello Caminos, she said with a blush and a pout. Izuku, hello Miss Saiko, he said with a big smile that made her blush. Saiko, CC whatever S it is, she said blushing. Setsuna, hello Izuku, she said, hugging the green-haired boy. How did you keep up with your training? She said excitedly. Izuku, 22 minutes, he said this so that Setsuna would understand. Setsuna, you really advanced 8 minutes in 4 days? That's a great achievement, she said. She is happy for her friend and secret crush. Izuku, yeah, it wasn't easy at all, said this innocent guy, lifting up his shirt. The moment he lifted her up, they were all terrified to see the green-haired man with second-degree burns already bandaged and cuts all over his body. They worriedly approached the green-haired man at exorbitant speeds. Cami, bring the bandages, a band-aid and a glass of water, she said while they brought her what she asked for. At that moment, Cami bandaged the green-haired boy up to his face and put some band-aids on his forehead. The glass of water, he drank it, and then he caressed the green-haired boy's hair. Cami, are you feeling better now? She said worriedly. In this time that had passed, the girls had caught an instinct of older sisters for the green-haired boy. Except for Setsuna, they saw the green-haired boy as an innocent soul that they should protect. They began to suffocate the green-haired boy, filling him with questions of if he was okay, if he was hungry, if they wanted to have a good time. It is not necessary to say who it is, and so the day passed for our favorite green-haired boy, where finally the time for lunch arrived. He was walking calmly. The people where they saw him welcomed him. The green-haired boy had become very popular, more among the girls. But he didn't even notice. He walked until he reached his trusty table. Izuku, Yui, Kendo, Reiko, I'm here, he said happily, sitting down. Kendo, hello Izuku, she said with a smile. Reiko, what's up? She said stoically but with a slight smile. Yui, honey, how did it go? A girl spoke to you? She asked seriously. Izuku, yes, she spoke to me. Saiko, Cami, Momo, Nijire, Setsuna, Melissa, Kendo, Reiko, and of course my favorite, you, she said, hugging Yui as if she were a little child. This caused several girls who thought the green-haired boy was innocent to blush. Kendo/Reiko, how innocent they thought, blushing a bit. Yui just caressed the green-haired boy's hair as he slowly separated. Izuku, well then, shall we eat? He said with a smile. After that it was lunchtime and so did the student day. Now we can see all the students returning to their homes, but one couple in common stood out more, like it was Izuku, who was carrying a Yui who had a silly smile when feeling the green-haired boy's hard back. They quickly arrived home where they tied and took a bath together. When she entered the shower, Yui sat in a way where her intimacy touched the green-haired boy's. This caused a big blush on her because of how big she was. She began to move a little when she saw the green-haired boy's reactions and blushed massively when she heard a small moan from him. When she heard the moan, it made an extremely beautiful sound, so she kept moving until the green-haired boy. Izuku, why Yui? Something's coming, he said, blushing. Yui quickly turned around and put that large piece of meat in her mouth. At the moment of doing this, the green-haired boy felt a sensation that something was coming out of him. Yui, having all the liquid in her mouth, almost choked, but as she says, a good girl swallows it all. She swallowed all the green-haired boy's semen until she couldn't take it anymore. But that taste was so addictive to her, she was sure she could have breakfast, lunch, and dinner on that. After that moment, Izuku and Yui finished bathing and both went to the room, Yui with a plan. Upon reaching the room, Yui quickly took off the green-haired boy's shirt and pushed him to the bed, confusing the green-haired boy. Yui, tonight I'll be yours, she said with a perverted look. Izuku, what? Said this innocent. A spectacular night plus 18. It was a rainy night, a little cold, although for the black-haired girl it was full of heat. She was on top of the green-haired boy. Yui, tonight I'll be yours, she said with a perverted smile. Izuku, huh? He said, confused. But then Yui began to kiss the green-haired boy passionately, where he, without knowing what was happening, just responded to the kiss. The black-haired girl began to move her butt between the green-haired boy's legs, unconsciously awakening something. Yui, it's really big and it's hitting my butt. I think it wants to get out, she said, laughing a little with a perverted look. Lemon skipped. But the green-haired boy just hugged her and held her against his chest while he caressed her hair. Izuku, I love you, Yui, he said, this only to fall asleep on Yui's head. This made Yui blush again, but she just put on a smile. Yui, I love you too, Izuku, she said as she snuggled up to the green-haired boy's chest. It was a spectacular night, she said with a smile. To revenge? Now we can see the green-haired boy walking with his girlfriend to school, but curiously he was carrying her on his back. Yui, take me to my seat, she said, sinking into the green-haired boy's back. You were very abrupt yesterday. I can't walk, she said with a slight blush. Izuku, I'm sorry, he said, lowering his head. Yui, don't apologize, I enjoyed it, she said with a somewhat strange smile. The green-haired boy just nodded with a smile that Yui longed to see, that smile that gave her a reason every day to see her again. Izuku took Yui to his classroom where he met Kendo, Reiko, and the rest of Class B. Monoma, oh, what do we have here? A conceived guy from Class S. Don't think that I'm afraid of you because of that time. I'll get revenge on you, you hear? He said in an arrogant tone, drawing everyone's attention. Izuku, okay, he said with a smile, just to move forward and leave Yui at her desk. Yui, thank you, darling, she said with a slight blush. Kinoko, hey, and why did you bring her here? She said, pulling Izuku's sleeve. Izuku, oh, it's just that yesterday. Yui quickly covers his mouth. Yui, I hurt my leg, that's why I can't walk, and he brought me here, right, Aiza? She said with a smile, so that the green-haired boy agreed. Izuku, yes, that's right. Well, I have to go, don't change me, he said, giving Yui a kiss on the forehead. He was leaving, but he didn't realize that someone was coming in the hallway, so he accidentally ran into him. Bakugo, oh, what the hell is wrong with you? He said angrily. Izuku, oh, hello, he said with a smile. Bakugo, you want to fight, huh? He said, getting into a fighting stance. Izuku, I'm not sorry, but you couldn't beat me, he said to start leaving, but Bakugo took him by the shoulder. Bakugo, fight me right here, right now, he said seriously. Kendo, hey, you shouldn't. Bakugo, shut up, Hitch. Nobody asked for your opinion, he said angrily. So you're going to fight uselessly? He said with a sly smile. The entire Class B saw this, upset with Bakugo, but worried since they knew what Izuku was capable of. He may be someone tender and innocent, but he has a brutal force for combat. Izuku, Hey, there was no need to insult her, he said seriously. Bakugo. But what do you want if it's only one, he said, but he didn't finish speaking as he felt a strong pressure. Izuku. Nothing insults towards them, he said seriously. Your fight is with me, don't involve them, he said. At that moment everyone saw how Izuku began to approach Bakugo without the best intentions, and he did too. Izuku was about to hit Bakugo, but Izuku, stop right now, she said seriously. Izuku just listened, which caused Bakugo to punch him, knocking him to the ground. Don't do anything. If you continue you could get into trouble, he said seriously. Izuku had no choice but to nod, but Bakugo, annoyed and with a sarcastic look, just started punching the green-haired boy who didn't defend himself. Bakugo, hey? What's wrong? If your girlfriend tells you something, will you listen to her? You're a miserable rat, he said laughing. Izuku didn't say anything and just stood still on the ground staring at Yui. As she received Bakugo's punches she was scared. She didn't know what to do. If she told him to hit him he would get into trouble, but if she didn't say anything she would hurt him. Izuku, he said, this one with pain from a punch from Bakugo that started to bleed. At that moment Yui didn't think about anything else. She didn't want Izuku to be hurt. Izuku hit him, she said with a smile. At that moment Izuku put his hands on the ground and with a twist he got up while kicking Bakugo, who was sent to the ground by the force of his hands. He quickly got on top of Bakugo and landed another punch so accurate that it knocked him out. Izuku, he breathed tiredly. Well, I have to go. I'm sorry if I caused you problems, he said, bowing in front of room 1B. Ibra, don't worry, it's not your fault. We'll tell them what happened and have them come pick him up. Now go, or it will be late, she said while Izuku nodded. Izuku, goodbye Yui, I love you, he said as he ran away. Yui, me too, she said with a slight smile and a blush. At that Izuku ran to his classroom where he forgot to wash his face, so he still had blood, scratches and bruises. He ran to his classroom, and when he opened the door he could see all his classmates. They were going to greet him, but when they saw him all beaten up they became alert. Kami, Izuku, what happened to you? He said, going to Izuku. Izuku, oh nothing, it's just that I fought nervous with someone, he said with a smile. Psycho. But you can't fight with anyone, just look at how they left you. Come on, she said, starting to clean the green-haired boy's face with a handkerchief. You have to be more careful, you would have gotten into trouble if they discovered you. As your classmates we care a lot about you, she said, looking at Izuku. You're a good boy. Don't let anyone provoke you, she said while Izuku nodded with a smile. Although it's not that I care, commoner, she said with a blush, sitting in her place. Izuku just gave a few light laughs, then Nijire and Melissa quickly arrived and began to clean his face with alcohol. Nijire, Izuku, who did all this to you? She said, somewhat upset. Izuku, it was Bakugo, he wanted revenge for that time, he said, laughing a little. Melissa, but if that time you defeated him with a single blow, why did he leave you so damaged? She said, confused. Izuku, it's just that Yui told me not to do anything or I would get into trouble, but after I started bleeding she gave me permission to hit him, and I finished him off with one blow, he said with a smile. Setsuna, but I already told you that you shouldn't pay attention to everything Yui tells you, she said, shaking the green-haired boy's hair. Today I'll talk to her at lunch, okay? She said while Izuku nodded with a smile, imagining the three of them eating peacefully. After that, Yu entered the classroom and worried about Izuku. He everything to her, and she told him that they would take action on the matter. Well, leaving that aside, let's start with the class, she said while everyone agreed. Confrontation. The class had passed peacefully, although curiously the girls were with the green-haired boy. Kami, how do you feel? Does it still hurt? She said worriedly, looking at the green-haired boy's face. Izuku, no, it doesn't hurt anymore, he said, smiling. Psycho, I keep repeating it, don't let them provoke you, just look at how you ended up, she said, hugging the green-haired boy protectively. Izuku, I love you girls, he said with a smile. Kami, we too, she said, smiling. Psycho, whatever, me too, she thought with a slight smile. Setsuna, hey, the bell is about to ring, let's go, she said with a smile, while Izuku nodded. After that the two left at the exact moment when the bell rang and went to a table where Yui, Reiko and Kendo were when she saw the green-haired boy arrive. She was going to greet him, but they got a little uncomfortable when they saw Setsuna coming behind him, but they got a little alert when they saw that she didn't have her flirtatious face, but now she had a serious face, and she sat in front of Yui staring at her. "Yui, what's wrong?" she said, confused. "Setsuna, oh, nothing, it's just that because of you, Izuku was left with a badly beaten face," she said, somewhat upset. "Kendo, how did you find out?" she said, surprised. "Setsuna, it's not because he came bleeding with a broken lip and a black eye," she said sarcastically and annoyed. "Yui, what?" she said worriedly, seeing her boyfriend's face. She checked the green-haired boy's face, and he did indeed have a black eye and a split lip. "Yui, but how come not?" "Setsuna, didn't you notice? It must be because it was covered in blood," she said, looking seriously at Yui. "Izuku, hey, I don't think it's for." "Setsuna, you shut up," she said while looking at him seriously. "Why are you like this? Why don't you ever defend yourself? Why do you always go around with your good boy face everywhere?" she said, annoyed. "You always listen to what everyone tells you. Have you ever listened to yourself? Oh, why do you let Yui control your life?" she said while watching the green-haired boy lower his gaze. "Yui, hey, don't." "Setsuna, don't yell at him," she said, finishing Yui's sentence. "Why? Maybe you can let them hit him, but I can't yell at him. Look at him, that's how he is, he just keeps quiet and watches everything. Why? Because he got used to not defending himself from you, that now he doesn't defend himself from anyone," she said with an annoyed look. At that moment Izuku just clenched his fists. For the first time he thought they could all eat together in a peaceful environment, but apparently it wasn't like that. At that moment Izuku just breathed and calmed down. "Izuku, I think they shouldn't make such a big deal about it," he said with a smile, attracting the attention of the four girls. "It was just a few light blows, and it was because he didn't want me to get into trouble." "Thanks for that," he said, kissing Yui on the mouth. "Let's just eat quietly, okay?" he said, eating from his plate. "Setsuna, seriously? Didn't your parents teach you to defend yourself?" she said angrily. But at that moment the four girls saw how Izuku lowered his gaze, leaving a gloomy and sad look. "Izuku, they never cared about anything other than my training, and they went abroad when I was 10 years old and have never come back. Miss Sayuki and Yui are the only people I can consider family, so please never mention them again," he said, taking his plate and leaving. "Setsuna, Izuku, wait, this one was already gone." "Yui, see what you provoke," she said angrily. "Setsuna, if only you hadn't done it like that, none of this would have happened," she said this seriously to also leave. "Yui, she said, sighing, "I know where he might be. I'll go look for him. I'll get to the classroom later, okay?" she said while the two girls agreed. After that Yui ran through the hallways until she reached the stairs. She went up until she reached the roof. She entered, and indeed the first thing she saw was the green-haired boy while he was eating. "Yui, Izuku," he said, "he's going to him." "Izuku, hey Yui," he said, wiping his tears, "I'm sorry to leave like this, please don't be angry," he said, lowering his head. At that moment Yui just hugged the green-haired boy while she sank him into a deep kiss. "Yui, Izuku, what's wrong with you?" she said, confused, in a loving tone and looking for a reason to help the green-haired boy. "Izuku, it's just that I'm afraid that you'll find someone better than me and leave. I don't want you to leave. I couldn't stand it. Every day I see you and I see myself, and I think, how is she with someone like me? I'm afraid that one day you'll see that I'm not good enough and you'll just leave. That's why I want to do everything you say. I don't want to make you angry. I don't want to do anything bad. I don't want to lose you," he said, lowering his head. At that moment, without thinking, Yui threw herself into the green-haired boy's arms while giving him a deep kiss full of love. "Yui, you will never do it. I love you, Izuku. I've been in love with you since I met you, since before I knew it was love. At that moment when we met in the park, I always wanted to be with you. The moment I knew I would live with you, my heart jumped with happiness. And every day I want to give you the best, so you know that I love you because I love you," she said, watching as the green-haired boy began to cry. "Izuku, Yui, he said, hugging the brunette while crying, "please never leave. You are the only thing I have in this world," he said while he buried the brunette in his chest. "Yui, and I will never do it. You are the best thing that has happened to me and the best thing I have. I love you, Izuku," she said, hugging the green-haired boy. "Izuku, when we get home we will do what we did yesterday, so you know how much I love you," he said, blushing at Yui. "Yui, yes," she said, that I can't hide her emotion. "Izuku, so are we going?" he said, extending his hand to the black-haired girl. Yui, yes, she said, taking his hand. Izuku/Yui, I love you, they said as they headed outside the rooftop. First attack. Now we can see how the green-haired boy was leaving his classroom. For some reason he felt the need to go see Yui. As if something was happening to him, he just decided to ignore his instinct and walked calmly, but he started to run. When he felt that strong pain, he ran to Yui's classroom with the help of the water emanating from his feet to give himself momentum, making sure that no one saw him. When he arrived at classroom 1B, he saw scared how everyone was in a corner of the classroom, and the guy with the crow mask was holding Yui. Izuku, how did he manage to get in here? He thought, confused. Yui, let me go, she said, this annoying. Chisaki, no, you will be of great help to us in trading with Midoriya. He would surely prefer his girlfriend 1,000 times over his own life, so you will come with us, he said, reloading his gun so that no one would move. But then everyone watched with some hope as Izuku entered the room. Izuku, let her go, said this annoying one. Chisaki, no better. What do you think, the girl? For the stone, it's a fair deal, don't you think? He said with a sinister smile. Yui, Izuku, she said with fear while crying. Izuku, I said let her go, son of a hitch, said this annoying guy. Chisaki, but this is all your fault, Midoriya, you knew you couldn't involve anyone in this, and now she will pay the consequences, he said while pulling the trigger. Yui, don't listen to him, Izuku, she said, crying. Everyone looked at this with fear. Did Izuku get into a gang conflict? Kendo, Izuku, just give him the stone he talks about. I promise we won't judge you and we'll help you get out of it, but give him the stone, he said. He's crying. Izuku, it's not that easy, he said seriously, but he made a decision. Leave her out of my problems, he said, lifting his shirt. Everyone saw with shock a jewel embedded in his chest. Then Chisaki pushed Yui, knocking her to the ground while pointing the gun at her, and Izuku just approached him. Yui, Izuku, don't do it, she said in fear. Izuku, I'm sorry, Yui, I have no choice, take it, he said seriously. Then Chisaki, without expecting anything, took the green-haired boy's gem. As he pulled it out, everyone watched in horror as a red light began to spread throughout the green-haired boy's body as he screamed and cried in pain. Reiko, Izuku, she said, scared, what's wrong with him? Yui, the gem that is in his body is what keeps him alive. If they take it away, he will die, she said. She is crying. Chisaki was about to rip the gem out of the green-haired boy. Izuku, why Yui, he said, this attracting everyone's attention and especially the black-haired one. I'm sorry, and not being able to get home, he said this crying. But at that moment, before the gem was turned out, no one expected Monoma to arrive and tackle the guy, separating him from the green-haired boy. Then he took the gun and pointed it at him. Yui, Monoma, she said seriously with some tears. Monoma, I did things that I regret, he said, looking at Yui, but at this moment I won't regret anything, he said, sticking the gun to Chisaki's head. Go away or die, he said seriously. Chisaki, damn brat, said this annoying guy, trying to tackle him. But everyone saw in shock how the green-haired man with a fist covered in stone gave him a blow that sent him flying out of the UA. Followed by this, the green-haired man, seeing how Chisaki flew out, fell to the ground while breathing heavily and spitting out a little blood. Yui, worried, went to help him. Yui, Izuku, talk to me, please, Izuku, he crying said. At this point, Kendo and Reiko also arrived to help the green-haired boy. Kendo, how do we make it go away? She said, scared. But they fell silent when they saw how the green-haired boy slowly woke up. Izuku, oh, what happened to me? He said, confused, but the memories came to him. I have to go after him, he said, but he could not walk because his legs did not respond. My body does not respond to me, he said seriously, but then he begins to remember why Yui, he said, standing up quickly, although his body did not respond to him. He crawled to the brunette where he gave her a big hug that is between tears corresponded. I'm sorry, he said, crying. Yui, no, Izuku, it's not your fault. I knew this would happen, but now I'm ready. I will fight with you. Maybe not directly, but I will always support you no matter what happens, she said, giving him a kiss that he reciprocated. Kendo, okay, did you just forget everything that happened? She said seriously. Right now they will tell us what just happened, she said seriously, as did the whole room while they agreed. Izuku, well, promise. The green-haired boy was in a difficult situation, but he couldn't reveal his secret. Izuku, Well, since I was little I had an illness that was supposed to be terminal, he said, this one's scaring everyone, but the stone I have in my chest is the family treasure that is also connected to an intravenous that keeps me alive, he this said once so that everyone could see it. Monoma, really? He said, looking at the green-haired boy. Ibara, you just sent someone flying with a single blow from your stone-covered arm, she said in shock, just like everyone else. Izuku, it's that this one only looks at Yui, and she just nods. Okay, I'll tell you the truth, he said this seriously. What happens is that the gem that is embedded in me is the family heirloom, a jewel that for generations has had different bearers. I am one of them. The gem gives you the ability to control 4 random elements. I can control water, fire, wind, and earth. The guy you just saw is a Yakuza. The Yakuza for generations have tried to steal the Midoriya jewel, and that is why the chosen bearer is destined to die defending the stone, this one said seriously while everyone opened their mouths in disbelief. Reiko, you're joking, right? The gray-haired girl said incredulously. Faced with that doubt, the green-haired boy activated his fire side, leaving everyone in shock. Were their eyes deceiving them? They were seeing what seemed impossible, a human with powers. Ibara, how can you do that? She said, impressed. Izuku, I can do this too, he said, activating his water, causing a great humidity to grow in the environment. Kendo, so if it's real you have powers? She said in shock as she did the whole room. Izuku, I didn't want it to be discovered because anyone who knows the secret is in danger, so I ask you as a favor, as a leap of faith towards you, don't tell anyone, he said seriously while everyone raised their hand to chest height. All, oh, nobody, these serious people said. Izuku, okay, I think he couldn't finish as he fell to the ground because his body was very hurt. Yui, Izuku, she said worriedly. Izuku, I'm fine, it's just that I'm tired, he said, turning around looking at the ceiling. I almost died today, he said, raising his fist and closing it. It won't happen again, he said seriously. Can you help me get home? He said, seeing how Yui agreed. So after a long talk about why they shouldn't tell anyone, Izuku and Yui went back to their house. When they arrived, Yui threw Izuku down on the couch and began to kiss him passionately while taking off her top garment. Yui, you need to relax, he said with a perverted smile as he began to undress the green-haired boy. The next day, we can see how naked Yui was asleep hugging the green-haired boy while he caressed her head. Izuku, good morning, Yui, he said with a smile, watching the brunette wake up. Yui, good morning, darling, she said, giving him a kiss on the lips. Izuku, well, do you want to eat? He couldn't finish because he heard his phone. Wait a moment, he said, taking out his cell phone, but he remained silent when he saw the message. What? He said, confused. Yui, what's wrong, Izuku? She said, confused. Izuku, it's been over a year since they talked to me. I didn't receive any calls from him or her, and now I get a message, he said, somewhat annoyed. Yui, whose? She said, hugging him. Izuku, from my father, he said seriously. A revealing video. The green-haired boy stared at his phone as he squeezed it little by little. Yui, seeing this, just took the green-haired boy's hand to reassure him. Yui, it's okay, right? We'll watch it together, she said, giving the green-haired boy a kiss. The green-haired boy felt the video on his phone. He took Yui's hand and she just leaned on his shoulder. Video. You can see Hisashi's father come out of nowhere and sit on a white chair that was in the center of the room. Hisashi, hello son, he said calmly. You'll wonder why your mother and I haven't sent you a message for a long time. Well, it's because I was busy on a project, and your mother I'll tell you at the end, he said, making Izuku a little nervous. First of all, I want to congratulate you. They told me that you learned to control the powers of the gem, right? He said, smiling, but what made Izuku nervous is that smile turned evil. Too bad, I'll have to kill you to take it away from you, he said, leaving Izuku and Yui in shock. That stone from the beginning had to be mine. I married your mother hoping that the child we would bear would be the bearer of that stone, and you came out, he said, smiling. We'll see each other at your school. I want everyone to see how you die at the hands of your father, and if you don't go we will kill all of them, he said, smiling. Surely your friends will be very scared, he said, smiling. Oh, and how is Yui, he said, scaring Izuku and Yui. They are still friends. It's been more than 10 years since I saw her. I still remember how they used to play in the park. Oh yes, that's true, she's your girlfriend now, right? It would be a shame if something happened to her, so come back tomorrow at lunchtime in the schoolyard. I want everyone to see you die just like mother. Goodbye dear son, he said for the video to turn off. End of video. Izuku didn't know what to say. He was in shock. He started to hyperventilate. Yui, seeing this, quickly hugged him. Izuku reciprocated the hug and just started crying on Yui's shoulder. Izuku, my mom, he said, crying. She is dead, he said while Yui caressed her hair. That's why she never called me. That's why I lost contact with her, because she's not here anymore, he said. Yui, Izuku, she said, also crying, not knowing what to say to the green-haired boy. Izuku, Yui, I'm sorry to bring you into all this. It's my fault. If I hadn't asked you to. He couldn't finish this one since Yui gave him a deep kiss on the lips. Yui, I don't care. I'm with you. I'm for you. I don't care about facing a damn villain. I'm here and I always will be, she said, hugging the green-haired boy. The green-haired boy couldn't help but cry again. He just put his head on Yui's shoulder as he let out heart-rending screams of pain. Yui just caressed his hair as he cried. Yui, cry, Izuku, cry all you want. You can do it, she said while still caressing the green-haired boy's hair. The end is almost here, and at that time I will live to be with Yui forever. The end is near and no one knows. My dream place final. The green-haired boy was wearing boots, military pants, and a hood. Izuku, you don't have to go, he said seriously. Yui, I'll go. It's the least I can do, support you, she said smiling. Izuku, but you will stay away from everything, understood? He said, taking her by the shoulders. Yui, understood, she said this. Then the green-haired boy just gave Yui a kiss on the lips, which she reciprocated. Izuku, the fight starts in 3 hours. Go and say I'm sick or something. I'll be there. If something happens, call me. I love you, he said, hugging Yui. Yui, everything will be fine, she said, tightening the hug. So after that, Yui took her backpack and left, but the green-haired boy, with fear in his eyes, simply followed her and made sure that she entered her classroom. When he saw that she met up with Kendo and Reiko, he had returned home. He decided to watch television for a while. After 2.5 hours. The green-haired boy was thinking of strategies when he received a call. Izuku, Yui, what's wrong? He said worriedly. Yui, Izuku, come on, she said this. At that moment the green-haired boy hung up the phone and, turning back into the wind, which was his fastest way, he arrived at the academy. Annoyed, he saw his father and some men who had all the students subdued with weapons and sitting on the floor. All the students watched in confusion and fear as a hooded man approached. Hisashi, there is no need to hide, my son. I want everyone to see your face when you die, he said, laughing. Izuku, there is no need to reveal my identity, said this annoying one. Hisashi, if you don't do it, I will, he said, laughing. Everyone listen, the hooded man here is called Izuku Midoriya, the bearer of a gem that gives him powers. We want to take the gem from him, but since he didn't want to give it to us, we had to resort to this so everyone knows whose fault it is that you're here, he said, laughing. Psycho, Izuku, what does this mean? This annoying person said. Izuku, don't believe him, he's not telling the truth, he said, taking off his hood. What he wants is to dominate Japan with the power of the gem, he said seriously. Student, but give it to him, I want to live, this annoying guy said. Izuku, here's the problem, the moment the gem leaves my body I'll die, he said, leaving his classmates in shock. Hisashi, die for them, son, just give me the gem, he said, smiling. But everyone watched in surprise as flames, water, wind, and the earth began to emerge from the green-haired boy, and the earth began to float around him. Hisashi, so it will be? He said with a big smile. Then Izuku watched in shock as his father began to emanate a blue fire, red water, wind, and the earth also floated around him. Hisashi, if you're wondering how easy I matched the power of your gem, I can use it for 30 minutes. 30 minutes enough to kill you and take her away, he said, smiling. The green-haired boy didn't say anything. He just looked at Yui. She just looked at him and agreed as a sign that everything would be okay. Then the green-haired boy, without saying anything, got into a fighting stance. Hisashi, that's how it will be, he said, smiling. Izuku, my mother, you killed her, and you will pay for it, he said seriously. Setsuna, Izuku, be careful, she said, scared. Chisaki, shut up, brat, she said, about to hit her with the gun. But he remained completely silent when he saw a hand crossing his chest. Chisaki, what? He said while blood came out of his mouth. Izuku, don't touch her, he said to take his hand out so everyone could see in shock how Chisaki fell dead. Hisashi, what's wrong, or don't you care about killing? He said, laughing. Izuku, leave them out of this annoying guy said. Kami, Izuku, she said, looking at the boy she considered almost a younger brother. Hisashi, I will if you manage to defeat them, he said, snapping his fingers. At that moment everyone pointed their weapons at one person each, at Momo, at Setsuna, at Kami, at Nijire, at Kendo, at Reiko, and at Yui. Hisashi, let's measure your speed, let's see who you can save, he laughing said. Izuku, I told you. Hisashi, what are you saying? I can't hear you. Izuku, leave them. Hisashi, prepare, he said as everyone pulled the trigger more, terrifying the girls. Izuku, get out of this, he said, releasing a large current of wind elemental clones, he said, making 10 copies of him. Hisashi, fire, 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 he said, upset. All the girls closed their eyes but felt nothing. Each one saw how a clone of the green-haired man stopped the shots with his bare hands, and Yui saw how the original green-haired man hit the guy, preventing the shot from hitting Yui. Yui, Izuku, he said, he was crying with happiness. Izuku, Yui, don't move, I promise I'll win, I love you, he said while kissing Yui. Yui, go and beat his face, she said with a smile too. Then the green-haired man, nodding quickly, went towards where Hisashi was. He dodged the blow and hit the green-haired man in the stomach that sent him flying against the wall, but he quickly recovered. He arrived at an exorbitant speed where Hisashi was and managed to hit him in the jaw that sent him to the sky. Then he hit him in the chest with a mallet that sent him to the ground, leaving a large crater. He quickly went to Hisashi, but he quickly got up, managed to hit him in the stomach that felt him to the sky again. Hisashi sent a large blue flame that the green-haired man managed to dodge. The green-haired man sent a large rock at Hisashi, but he dodged it. Then Izuku took his distance. Momo, Izuku, you can handle him, we trust you, she said with a smile, looking at the green-haired boy. Setsuna, I swear that if you win I will tell you everything I feel for you, just win please, she said, almost crying. Hisashi, how beautiful, he said, this one with a touch of mockery. I'm already bored of games, mega elements, he said this one so that everyone fell to their knees when they felt the great pressure of the air. Izuku, what the buck, he said, trying not to fall to his knees. But he couldn't continue because Hisashi hit him in the face at such colossal speeds that no one saw. This was where Izuku went, and taking his leg he threw him into the sky and then hit him in the chest that broke about 2 ribs. And before falling to the ground he hit him again so that everyone could see in horror how a large crater was created on the ground. Hisashi, job done now, I'll take the O, you're still alive, he said, laughing. Everyone watched with a little hope as the green-haired boy slowly got up from the ground, but they also saw how he was all hurt and bloody. They saw how the green-haired boy slowly approached Hisashi, almost falling to the ground, but he quickly recovered. He got in front of Hisashi, and everyone watched confused as he hugged him. Hisashi, don't think I won't kill you with this, my son, he said mockingly. Izuku, Dito, he said, very tired. Hisashi, what? Oh no. Izuku, detonation, he said this so that everyone could see in shock how the green-haired boy taking Hisashi to the sky generated a huge explosion. Yui, Izuku, she said, she's crying. Everyone saw how the green-haired boy fell from the sky without any trace of Hisashi. Izuku, forgive me mom, sorry Yui, he said, shedding a tear and falling hard to the ground, creating a large crater. Yui just watched sadly as something fell from the sky. She raised her hands to take it, and couldn't help but cry. This was the green-haired boy's gem in pieces. Setsuna, as she approached Yui, also began to cry. Yui just held the remains of the gem to her chest as she cried, but that cry was stupid as she heard grunts of pain. Izuku, help, I'm still alive, he said this. At that moment everyone, all the students, went to the green-haired boy. The strongest ones carried him, while the ambulances and officers arrived. Katsuki, you did well, damn extra, he thought with a slight smile. That day they took the green-haired boy away in an ambulance. Yui was crying, but now with happiness. The green-haired boy was still alive, but how? If his gem broke, well, that is something that cannot be explained. That day would be something that everyone would remember because it would be the birth of a hero. Time skip. 3 weeks had passed. In these 3 weeks Yui had been taking care of the green-haired boy at home since he was unconscious. Every day Yui fed him, cleaned him, and read him a story. Yui did not lose hope that the green-haired boy would wake up. Yui, and she said, closing the book, I hope you liked the story. Izuku, she said with a sad smile, but was in shock when she heard. Izuku, me 50-50, he said with a mocking smile. Yui, To Izuku she said, this static Izuku she said, throwing herself to hug the green-haired boy. Izuku, ha, ha, he said, grunting in pain. Yui, oh, I'm sorry, but you're already awake, she said, crying with happiness. Izuku, I promised you I would never leave your side, he said, smiling. Yui, so what will you do now? She said, confused. Izuku, I lost my powers, but I'm happy now. I'm a normal person, someone without that great burden that tormented me for years. I finished the Legacy of the Stone and the Legacy of the Yakuza, and I got a beautiful girl I think I finally found. My dream place, he said while giving Yui a deep kiss. Izuku/Yui, I love you, they both said in unison to sink into a big kiss.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.